Evet, hoş geldiniz.
Aleykümselam. Hoş geldiniz.
Bugün sizlerle Islamic Fintech ve İslamic finans alanında konuşacağız. Yanımızda çok değerli bir isim var. Doktor Faruk Razan, Türk'ün çok işlerisin. Benden kendisi üçtür. Kendisinin çok uzun yıllardır İslamic finans ve fintech alanında deneyimi var. 18 yıllık bir aslında 8 yıl ötesinde bir deneyimden bahsediyoruz. 51 farklı coğrafyada, ülkede, 4 kıta içerisinde ağırlıklı olarak danışmanlık hizmeti veriyor kendisi. İngiltere'de yaşıyor, Pakistan kökenli, Türkiye'de yakın zamanda yerleşti. Bundan sonra Türkiye'de yakın zamanda kurduğu Vakfı teknoloji firmasının aslında operasyonu yönetiyor burada. Dünyada birçok yerde hizmet verme imkanına aslında sahip. Özellikle kalkınma ve yatırım bankaları üzerinde. İslami finansın yaygınlaştırılmasına çok ciddi katkısı var kendisinin. Şirketiyle beraber çok farklı ülkede özellikle hükümet, kanun vesaire ve işte sermaye piyasaları alanında İslami ürünlerin yaygınlaştırılması, işte mevzuatın yönetmeliğinde oluşturulması noktasında önemli hizmetler sunuyor. Bununla beraber kendisi IOF, yani bu İslami finans aslında önemli kurumlarından bir tanesi. Economic Organization, Islamic Finance Industries. Orada etik kurulunun başında çok kıymetli bir görevi icra ediyor. Özellikle Afrika'da ve Afrika tarafından İslami finansın gelişiminde son yıllarda çok ciddi katkıları oldu. Dediğimiz gibi Türkiye'de de Fintech şirketi kurdular. Burada dijital bir sistem kurmaya çalışıyorlar ve katılım bankaları çalışıyorlar. Kendileri de bir müddettir Türkiye'deler ve burayı da önemsiyorlar. Katılımlarınız için tekrar teşekkür ediyoruz. Ethem Ömer, tanıdık bir isim. Boğaziçi mezunu. Bu eğitim çalışanı. Bu eğitimden ayrılıyor. Ethem de aslında bilgisayar mühendisi. Kendisi bilgisayar öğretmenliği. Evet. Yani çok ciddi yazılım alanını geliştirdi. Uzun yıllar bu ekipte, daha sonra da arkitekte geçti. Bir dönem proje yöneticiliği yaptı. Orada birçok alanda önemli katkıları oldu. Özellikle bankacılık uygulamaları dışarıya diğer bankalara uyarlanması noktasında önemli katkıları olduğunu söyleyebiliriz. Yakın zamanda da Faruk Bey'in ekibine katıldı. Dolayısıyla burada Türkiye'deki IPN operasyonunda şu anda Head of IT olarak çalışmaya devam ediyor. Head of Growth. Evet, bir terbiye olmuş.
Teşekkür ederiz.
So let's switch to English. So we have a presentation, I guess, Faruk Bey. If you wish, maybe you can contribute more what I said. You maybe understand some of it. Try to resume. So.
Thank you, Dr. Orhan. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you very much, Boğaziçi University, for inviting us, for this little talk. I see that, we have a small number here and we have a small number online as well. So this is very convenient and more like a family type of, situation discussion. We will keep it simple and we will invite you to engage with us, by asking questions, making comments, criticizing if you don't agree with something. Absolutely right. And we are here for an open dialogue. So inshallah, hopefully it will be a good, an informative session for everyone. We will learn from you, and hopefully you will be able to learn from our humble experience. So starting with that, before I go to the subject, I just want to ask 2 questions to the audience. Is there anyone in the room who doesn't have a smartphone? If there is one, please raise your hand. Okay, no one. That's my expectation. Next question. Please raise hands those who have an account with a Qatlum bank. Who have? Okay, so almost everyone. Now this leads to a third question that I didn't have actually in my mind, but now I'm going to ask you, as everybody did. How many of you actually understand what Qatlum is?
Very good question.
There's a gentleman behind.
Understanding differs.
So it's great actually. To be honest with you, I'm really pleased because everyone in the room is a Katlan Bank customer. With the exception of one gentleman, nobody seems to be claiming that they understand Katlan finance, which is fine. It would then be much better if we understood as well what it means. But the fact that you are banking with Katlan finance, Katlan banks, I think this is a great, virtue on its own. So congratulations for that. I really appreciate it. Why I asked these questions, because this was to establish, what exactly shall we talk about, what depth we shall go in our discussion. So now I think we can start with, our presentation. Yeah. So I think both we and Atembe, we have been introduced already. So we will start directly with the overview of fintech. So today's discussion is about Islamic fintech, right? When I say Islamic, that's the equivalent of Katlan. What we say Katlan here in Turkey is, in broader terms, we call it Islamic. So the discussion today will be focused on Islamic fintech. So what is fintech or financial technology? How does it connect to Islamic finance? And what does it mean for us? So let's have a quick look first on, it's coming. So let's have a quick look on, what's the definition of fintech. So here on the screen, you will see two definitions. One is academic, and that's from Oxford University, as one of the top universities in the world. That says computer programs and other technology used to support or enable banking and financial services, right? This is the academic, definition. The next definition is from the market, and that's coming from an organization called Investopedia. So those who bank research, etc., I think you will be familiar with Investopedia. It's a good search engine to do, for financial services, and that says fintech includes any technological innovation in the financial sector, including innovation in financial literacy and education, retail banking, investment, and even cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, right? So unlike the academic definition given by Oxford University, the market definition of Investopedia is actually much broader. So they have tried to include more, areas in, in their definition. Now, what we need to ask, first of all, that this new financial technology that we are talking about today, and we'll go into more details, is it an evolution of the technologies that existed before? And both of these gentlemen on my right and on my left, they are connected to a Katlan Bank, the leading bank in the country. And maybe you can chip in your views as well. That technology has existed for the last 30, 40 years, I would say, okay, in one form or another, right? But now suddenly we see that there is a complete new use of technology, and there are things that are being done in a very different way. So those days are gone, and most of you will not even know that because you were actually not born. But me being over 50 years old, I remember that as a kid when I used to go to the banks, they used to write in big registers that they call ledgers at that time. They used to write everything, every single transaction was written and signed off, in those ledgers, right? And there was like an archiving room, usually in the basement of the bank branch, which was full of, hundreds of these ledgers to keep a record of last 10 years of transaction or something like that. That's no more, right? Now, for the last few decades, we have been seeing everything being done on computer, and now suddenly we have everything on our phone. So I can do my banking, my transactions 24/7, whenever I want, wherever I want. I don't even need to be in the country. I can operate my bank from anywhere. This is it evolution? Evolution means incremental, improvement, or is it a revolution, meaning something drastic that has, just dramatized the whole thing completely? So I leave this question to you. I'm not answering this question, I'm just raising this question. The next thing is, Also, the financial technology that we are seeing in today's day and age is of two kinds. There is an enabling technology and there is disrupting technology, right? Can anybody give me an example of enabling technology? Think of something enabling that enables you, that helps you doing something,
Cars.
that helps you. Sorry?
Cars,
Car. Okay.
smartphones.
PC.
Yeah, but I mean in financial technology. So
Money transaction.
money transactions. So for example, every bank now, I think almost every bank, at least in Turkey, has an app, right? So you do your transactions on the app, right? This is the enabling technology. Anybody can think of a disruptive technology? Disruptive means that comes and disrupts, the way things are being done. No? Okay. For example, money transfers, right? So money transfers, there are apps that allow you to do money transfers within the country or outside the country at interbank rates, right? So before, if you had to send money, for example, I don't know, if you were studying, in a Western university somewhere, right? And your parents, they need to send you money, what they will do? They will go to the bank branch, they will, fill in a form, then they will pay Turkish liras. Those Turkish liras will be converted into, US dollar, euro, whatever, and the bank will charge a very high exchange rate, right? And then they will put their fees and so on. So the cost of sending money actually becomes very high, right? So if you send a small amount of money, you pay and actually pay almost an equivalent amount, for the charges as well. If it's a bigger amount of money, then it will be, relatively low, but otherwise it can be very high cost, right? Now these days, you don't need to do that. There are loads of these apps that allow you to actually transfer money from your bank account, but using their services instead of, the banks. So of course you can use, your own bank's app, but then you will pay high charges, high exchange rate. But using this app, you can actually just very simply, and instantly you can send money. It will be received on the other end within minutes, and you will pay the interbank rate with a very small fee. So I am one of those people who has benefited a lot over the last few years using these apps. And I'm sure that there will be other people as well. So this is, an example of disrupting technology, which has come and has disrupted the bank's business. So now the banks are not earning as much money as they used to from the overseas exchange and, all this type of transactions, right? So as we said, these new apps or these, the challenger fintechs, they're actually eating the bank's lunch. That's the English expression that we use, that they are eating their lunch.
See, breakfast in Turkish.
Breakfast.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if this trend continues, I think very soon they will eat their dinner.
Breakfast plus lunch, breakfast and lunch.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so what we see here is that all this, what we are talking about, this technology is actually driven by, the technological advancement. We have new technologies and we'll talk about them. Now it's going even beyond what has been known, so very new things like, for example, the distributed ledger technology, otherwise called blockchain and so on and so forth. And what we are experiencing is that there is an exponential growth. So again, the growth rate in the financial institutions was linear before. So it was a curve that will go by a few degrees. But now there is a possibility that someone can actually, one of these new apps or one of these challenger institutions, they can have an exponential growth going up like this, like a rocket. So within a matter of 2-3 years, 5 years, they will be able to, to be competing or even exceeding, their competitor and the traditional or the legacy financial institutions. And this is all because of technology, right? And this is where the landscape is changing significantly, dramatically changing, because now the financial institutions, if they do not change, the legacy institutions, they do not change, they do not adopt these new technologies, then probably they will disappear. It may take longer for them, they will become the dinosaurs. So the only way for them to survive, and if they want to thrive, is actually to adopt these new technologies. And adopting the new technology is not, okay, so we have, a digital platform. Okay, we have a blockchain now. No, the first thing is actually the mindset, because you have to think differently. You have to do things differently. So, for example, if it's a credit approval, in this day and age, you are no longer required to have a whole credit approval department who will go through different things and make a whole, undertaking, the operation and so on and so forth. And now you have technologies, and we have that technology that actually, there are algorithms working that draw information about the individual or the business, the applicant for a credit from different sources. They cook their sauce, within seconds, and they will in a click, they will give you the decision, and that decision will be more reliable than the decision taken by the humans, spending 2 hours on the undertaking process. So this is why it has become actually very, very important for the financial institutions to understand, to adopt these technologies, and also change their mindset. Now, what's interesting here that we see is that this technology is moving so fast that every day we read about something else. And Nathan Bay is of this coding background, so he will confirm that it's so fast that actually it's very difficult to keep up with this technology, right? And
Even the developers
are asking, right? And as a result, what's happening is that the technology is coming first, and the regulation is lagging behind. So the technology is already there and it's being used. So, for example, peer-to-peer lending, crowdfunding, right? This technology came like almost 10 years ago, and the regulation has come, I think, only a couple of years before, right? And not even fully, scoped. It actually still has gaps. And similarly for blockchain, every regulator in the world is, scratching their head. Okay, what do we do with these cryptocurrencies? So we allow, we don't allow, and a lot of debate, on the Sharia scholars as well. Is it halal? Is it haram? What do we do? Nobody knows, right? And this is the gap that I'm saying is that, the movement in the technological advancement is so fast that the regulation, the Sharia interpretation, everything is lagging behind. So the regulators are always trying to catch up, but this is a work in progress, and the gap is just widening, I would say.
May I ask?
Sure.
Regulation is the only reason that European banking system is weak.
In what sense?
Generally, for example, when we speak about transactions between, for example, Turkey and Italy, Turkish banking system is much more developed, as I heard.
Yes, I would agree to some extent, and I think Italy is one of those European countries that are more traditionalist. So they are having a little bit of, I think, cultural challenge to change this mindset that I'm saying.
They are developing many technologies. Why not banking?
No, but this is what I'm saying, Halim, that the problem is not the technology itself. The problem is the mindset. So even if you adopt the technology, look, I may be owning a Ferrari, right? I have a Ferrari, okay? But my mindset is of driving 20 kilometers an hour, right? And on this Motoyol, I'm driving 20 kilometers an hour. What is stopping me from going 200 kilometers an hour? Maybe there is a police car as well. Yeah, I have to be careful with that. And of course, I have to be careful with my life and other people's lives as well. But the car is capable of doing 200 kilometers an hour. It's my choice that I'm driving at 20 miles an hour, 20 kilometers an hour. And this is the problem with my mindset, because I think this is great what I'm doing. But I actually forget or I ignore the fact that I have a much bigger potential that remains untapped. So this is where I think the problem lies also with this mind that that sometimes you see in more traditional countries where they have the technology and they have the capability, but they actually are not changing their mindset. And this is a cultural issue for me. I'm glad to say, Alhamdulillah, I have been blessed immensely by having the opportunity from Allah that I have worked in more than 50 jurisdictions today. And I'm telling you that when it comes to Islamic finance, I'm glad to say that the Turkish Qatar banks are actually much better than any other market. Believe me or not, right? You might be complaining, and I am complaining, by the way, about these banks, but I'm still telling you, still leaps ahead.
You have these comments in terms of technological advance or Product-wise,
No mindset.
mindset.
Technology and mindset both. So the Turkish regulator BDDK is actually better equipped with the regulations. Although there are gaps, there are still rules for improvement, but they are still having a good regulation, at least for the basic thing, right? Compared to many other regulators in the world. I'm specifically talking about Islamic finance, right? And similarly, the banks, I think, are more advanced in terms of technology and also the mindset. So still there is way to go, but I think overall, I see that this country is still, this market is performing much better compared to many other Islamic countries.
So can you make a differentiation between the Islamic fintech and the conventional fintech? So when we put the Islamic words, it can be also in finance or another sector. So it's a Sharia-wise something. What else Islamic in this?
Okay, so good question, Orhan Bey. I think before I answer this question,
Technology Islamic or finance Islamic? Which one is it? Okay.
so this is the question that I was just trying to raise. That what is your expectation that shall your laptop or your smartphone read Shahada for you, so that it's Islamic, or is your expectation different? Of course, technology itself is always neutral, right? Technology is technology. This is material, and this entirely, depends on the user of technology. What they do with that technology. What is that they want and what do they try to achieve from there, right? So, of course, the technology itself will not be able to determine whether it's Islamic or not. What will determine, what will make an Islamic fintech Islamic is actually that there is an embedded, system with the technology. So there is some sort of, an add-on or a hold-on with the technology that makes the transaction and, the output of the technology Islamic. So let me deviate a little bit, into what is Islam. So I'm not going to ask any more questions because I'm conscious of time. So a few important pillars that we need to, or foundations that we need to establish first. So we all know, being Muslims, that Allah has made fires haram. We agree with that? Is it known? Everybody clear? So fires here. In our life, there is no place for fires. This is the fact. Allah has been very clear in the Quran that Allah has prohibited fires, and Allah has, what's the option? What's the alternative that Allah has given us? Yes, and right. So, and this is the important point that a lot of people we forget. So we always talk about the prohibition of fires, but we forget the permission, and not only the permission, but the emphasis on trading. So technically speaking, Muslims as people, as the followers of the book, who abstain from riba, from fires, must engage in trading, must engage in entrepreneurship. This is the basis, this is the foundation of our lifestyle. This is the foundation of our economy. So a Muslim economy shall be always based on the foundations of trading, entrepreneurship, manufacturing, services, real economy, not financial economy, right? Now, this is the first and foremost thing. So we have to do transactions that are not based on fires, but they are structured otherwise. This is the first thing. Second thing is that there are other prohibitions as well. For example, what we call in Arabic gharar. I don't know what's the Turkish equivalent of that. Yeah, so that this is ambiguity or excessive speculation, for example, things like that. Any form of gambling, and gambling is not going to casino, but gambling is anything doing any transaction that is unfair and that has a win-lose type of situation. So Sharia, the Islamic law or the Islamic code of conduct always pushes us as humans to be fair, to be compassionate with each other, and to be transparent, and always work in harmony. So we have to create a win-win situation in anything and everything that we do, right? So these are the few basics of what makes Islamic finance Islamic. So we will not be able to use files in our transactions. And what does it mean inherently? That, file system is using money as a commodity. Okay, so here is the money that I lend you, right? And against that lending, I want this return. Here is the money that I borrow from you, and I will pay you files, as a compensation for this lending. So they are trading on money. So they are using money as a commodity, which is not acceptable, from Islamic point of view, because money cannot be traded. Money is not is not a commodity. Money is a value, is a system, is a measure to quantify, the value of an object. Okay, and it's a medium of exchange. So if I sell this glass, so I have to sell the glass, and then I will say this glass is for 10 Turkish lira. I cannot sell a note of 10 lira. Okay, this is what I'm selling to you. No, I have to sell the glass, and 10 lira is the value of this glass, is the price of this glass. So I give the glass, I take 10 liras paper in return. It's not ideal, but it's acceptable. We can live with it. But when we start, using the 10 Turkish lira note as, the object of exchange, that is bad. That is prohibited. So what will happen is that any transactions that will be conducted by any financial institution, bank, or a finance company, a service company, for example, or any other institution, or any instrument, market instrument like Sukuk, etc., that has been established, it will be not on the basis of files. It will not treat the money as commodity or the underlying asset. There will be a different type of transaction, meaning that there will be either a sale of an object, there will be either renting an object, like a lease, and having rent against that, or it will be providing services, or it will be entering into a partnership where, for example, 3 of us, we become partners, we pool our money together, we do something, and then we share our profit, our risk, and our reward together. So these are 3-4 major type of transactions that we do, and a number of variations from thereof. So this is what we need to understand, and this is what Qatlum banking is about. And this is probably what the Qatlum banks, by the way, need to focus on, because the customers are there. They have a good will, they have a good intention. They don't want files in their life. They want to bank, with Qatlum banks, but they do not understand what exactly it means. So they are just taking, the face value of, the claim of the bank that we are Qatlum. So alhamdulillah, this is good, but it will be much better if the bank also gives them some knowledge, some education that how it's going to be. So sorry to close the question. Yeah, the technology has to be used in a way that the transactions that take place through this technology are in compliance with the Sharia requirements, meaning not involving any files or not having any thing that is prohibited.
Okay, so this is very long debate for almost 10 or 15 years in the emergence of Islamic fintechs or commercial ones also. Are fintech trend or fall of industry of finance? So in terms of Islamic finance, so Islamic fintechs will help Islamic banks to grow, or the industry to grow much better, or are they an alternative, or should they be together? Or how they contribute to the Islamic finance sector overall? How they doing this? Can you also give some examples, or maybe in Turkey or outside?
Yeah, of course, no problem. In my personal view, this financial technology is a great tool, that will help the cause of Islamic finance, right? The Islamic financial institutions. I tell you why. It's very simple. Anybody knows the market share of Qatlum banks in Turkey?
5%.
5%. It's around 8%. It's around 8%. It used to be 5% a few years ago, but recent years, the government has put a lot of effort in this. Now they have reached 8%.
Maybe with the help of Fintech, Islamic Fintech.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, that hasn't started.
So how do you know that number, by the way, compared to others?
Exactly. That's what I was telling you. That's exactly that I'm going there. That 8% is almost a standard that we see across the world, among Muslim countries. So Turkey is a majority Muslim country, right? And it's almost the same, you know, so Pakistan was on 8% for a long time. Recently, they have moved, I think they are around 13%, right? But it's a very big country, it's 230 million people, right? In Indonesia, for many, many years, and despite all the efforts that the government put in to promote Islamic finance, they were not exceeding 5% of the market share. And alhamdulillah, I feel very blessed that we actually did a master plan, a national master plan for the government of Indonesia to increase their market share in Islamic finance. And with the rollout of that, the implementation of that plan, in 5 years, they have doubled their market share. So now they are above 10%. Okay, but again, it's a very big country, 285 million people, the largest Muslim population in one country, right? So the point I'm making is that it's still low. The penetration of Islamic banking, Islamic finance is still very low. And I'm talking about banking. When it goes to Siyukta, for example, you know, Takaful or insurance, we are talking about much smaller numbers, right? When we go to capital markets, for example, you know, the sovereign funding that the governments are using, we are talking about very small numbers, really small. Yani, you know, the Turkish government has been issuing sukuk for the last many years, but compare these, you know, the volumes of these sukuk with the bonds that they have issued. And it's really tiny and it's very, very small. Same case, you know, with Pakistan. I worked on the strategy for, you know, the Pakistan government, where they were trying to push their sovereign funding to 10%. Of you know, in form of sukuk. So currently their funding is around 3% Islamic and 97% is in bonds, right? So we're talking about very small numbers. And one of the things, actually there are multiple factors that are contributing, but the biggest one I think is the lack of understanding, right? So people do not understand. Everybody, I think in the world, every Muslim, you know, whether they are practicing or not practicing, they all know and they accept the fact that, you know, Faiz is wrong, right? But what next? What do we do? What are the options available? Not much knowledge, right? So many people like your good selves who have good niyat, they will go, they will, you know, take up the product, but they will not understand. And when they will not understand, there will be many things that they may be able to do, but they will not do because they just don't understand. So there is lack of understanding. There is also lack of trust. For one way, you know, many countries are suffering with lack of trust. Because people believe maybe, you know, these banks are not as solid, maybe they are not as good, maybe my money is not safe. And sometimes when, you know, there is you know, a deposit that is you know, like on a participatory basis where, you know, there is a risk of loss as well, people, depositors will shy away. Oh, I don't want my money. So instead of putting in you know, in a savings account or in a term deposit with the capital bank, they will put it in a current account, and those, you know, some of them they will just take it to Faiz conventional bank, and they will do that. So there is lack of understanding, there is lack of trust.
In Turkey, it's completely different, and people don't know much about the fate of their money. It's written in the law that you can lose your all principal money, but people don't know much that. So they don't. In other terms, they don't believe Islamic bank. Some of them.
Yes, it's the case everywhere. You know, so everywhere is the case, and that's why I gave you the examples of these big Muslim populations like Pakistan and Indonesia. They are suffering.
So how is succeed? Let's maybe not change the subject, but I'm very wondering from the Indonesia experience, you know, 5% to 5%. So how do you manage it?
Yeah, that's the thing that we have done actually. So the things that are preventing, we already mentioned. The third one is regulation, right? So the legal and regulatory environments are not adequate, they are not appropriate here in Islamic bank, Islamic finance, because usually in the regulation, you think about fire, they're talking about different things and so on, but they actually do not accommodate Islamic finance or capital finance, which is fundamentally different, as we already discussed. Fourth thing is that the financial institutions, mainly the banks, they are having a big difficulty in outreach. Outreach means having access to the customer, right? And in a competitive market like Turkey, where you have so many banks and the banking penetration is high, the majority of the population is having multiple accounts with banks, right? So we are living in a society here in Turkey where people have multiple, you know, banking relationships, right? most of the individuals.
86 million credit card users.
Exactly. Yeah, out of 90 million people, meaning that every older man and woman and even a newborn baby is having a card.
Exactly.
This is due to
And
multiple
I think it was Turkey was 6th in the world when it comes to credit card penetration.
Absolutely. So in this crowded and competitive market, how do Islamic banks they reach these people, and how do they convince them that guys, we are around here, we are also a bank, we can provide you with all these services? How do we do that? So this is where technology becomes extremely helpful, extremely helpful. And this is where the Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions, they need to be very smart. This is actually an unprecedented opportunity because using these technologies, using the fintech appropriately and enabling fintech that I mentioned, not disruptive, but enabling fintech, they can actually do magic here. Why? Because that will help not only to deal with the first two issues, right? What are those first two issues that I said? They are lack of understanding and lack of trust, right? These two issues, they can be addressed easily by use of technology. So they can educate their customer to address the lack of understanding. They can also build their credibility using the same technology to remove the issue of lack of trust. And then the third one is the regulation. So of course, technology can help with regulation as well, but not as much. It's the regulator's role. The fourth issue is the outreach. The outreach can be exponential because now the banks have the opportunity actually using fintechs, using this open banking system. They can actually have access to much more people and in a very interactive way. So and FMB will tell you more about how we are working on this and how our fintech iFin is actually trying to explore, to develop and to capitalize on this opportunity. How we are enabling the banks to reduce their cost, how we are making them more sustainable, how we are giving them better access to customer, and so on and so forth. And this is all due to technology.
Yeah.
So this can be extremely good, for Islamic industry.
So
I have an answer for that question also. Right now, what I see in our industry, Islamic finances, somehow the entrepreneurs are investing on fintechs, trying to create an environment for those fintechs. And the banks are the huge organization, and they are building up themselves for the up and running integrations also. However, the time required a fintech to live and the time for a bank to integrate with the fintechs are different. Okay, and let's say to make a bank API ready takes 2 years. 2 years. And to make a fintech go and build their app and go to market, start their business, and I think they have 2 or 3 years maximum to consume their capital. Right? So in this sense, if the Islamic banks are not going to act as quick as required to catch the technology or the fintech companies, then they will be the reason why the fintechs are dying at the others. But the fintechs, if they have the capital, then what we are going to see is, I have a Turkish term for this, the fintechs are going to convert themselves to the banks, or the banks who have the required technology will convert them to a fintech. In Turkish, bankalaşan fintechler, fintechleşen bankalar.
Yeah.
We will come to this subject, I think. So, as you said, in order for banks or the fintechs to become successful in this area, they need to meet each other. They need to see the other one's needs very well from the product point of view, from technology
point of view or from integration point of view, and they need to act quickly to catch up with the other competitors, I mean the conventional ones.
I will come to challenges also, but I think the Fintech company, the best examples in Turkey. So how do you help Islamic banks to grow with IP, or how do you help the consumers also to reach Islamic banking products? So what is the benefit here? So can you tell us the products?
And to reply to this question, I think I'm going to ask you a question. If I'm going to use a consumer finance from Kuwait, what could I do?
Many things.
Like what?
You have to go. There are some daily products that you can make on digital, but first you have to go to open a bank account if you don't have either from outside or digital you can do this. But you have to go and discuss credits, and there are many procedures compared to the conventional bank because you have to prove that you have to buy something in real.
You're buying something.
You are buying something. So that's why additional procedures compared to the conventional bank. So you have to do many things.
Related to the Murabba process, as you said, right now, everyone in our country can go to an Islamic bank or Qatar bank and get a consumer finance. With which way they can go ask for loans, ask for finance first, then if the limit he asks is approved, then he goes and finds the product he wants to buy, comes with a pro forma invoice and applies for finance, evaluate it again, and if he is approved, he can take the payment sheet with him to go to the seller and dealer. If the dealer has a trust on this sheet of payment, he can give the money. He can give the items, goods to the seller. Right? So this is a painful process. When we start to talk about IP, the thing right now we are doing is we are bringing the Islamic banks and the retailers in a marketplace together. We have a platform which is running online, and the retailers has their accounts in the system. And while they are selling the item exactly on time, I'm selling this table to Boğaziçi, I'm directly creating my card, sepet on the system and sending this information to the banks and telling them, guys, Boğaziçi is buying this table for this amount, and I'm the retailer verified by item. Make him an offer. No branches, no paperwork. All of them is left out now.
So you are no time. So you are creating a enabling technology as far as examples for money transfer in the past and up to date. So the same is valid for taking a credit from the Islamic bank. There are lots of paperwork, lots of time. Now you change it to some level that people can do it immediately. Now maybe it's not either level, but feature everything is very smoothly.
The thing is, the value we are generating, the customer does not need to go to any branch. And it doesn't need to look for each different Islamic banks to search for the lanes, make a comparison between the products, etc. This is done on time on the platform while he's buying the product. So the product is there, service is there, and now iFin is removing all this process to go to the bank branch, ask for finance, take the approval, go back to the retailer, ask for delivery, etc. So this is being done all digitally through our platform, which means with this way, actually, we are reducing the cost of the bank a lot, because we know the cost of branches, we know the cost of employees, and we know the other materials that we are consuming through this process, right? So since all of them is eliminated, now cost of Murabba to an Islamic bank is lower than before. Now they can, with their rates, now then they can compete with the conventional banks easily. This is the value we are generating.
Let me take a step beyond. What does it mean? What does this technology mean for the banks, right? This technology actually adds directly on the bottom line of any bank's balance sheet. How do we do that? By providing this technology, that any consumer, right, has instant access to financing, Kaplan financing, in stores and also online, 24/7, right? The bank Shubay is open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Okay, when there is no branch, there is no business for the bank, right? What are we offering now to the bank? The customers are shopping on these platforms like Hepsi Burada, like Radio, etc. 24/7. The stores are open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. easily, sometimes 10 p.m. Okay. All this time that the business is open, the bank is making money, right? Because the bank is no longer required to ask the customer to come to the branch, have a branch first of all in the area, then have staff in that, then have systems in that. Everything is fully automated. The algorithms, they work. Our system is talking to the bank in real time and with other parties as well, for example, the credit bureau, right? So we collect the information. All the customer needs to present is their Dejek. That's all. Just one, document, and that's your ID, and that's it. Just with the number, the system is able to search you, to do your credit scoring, to do your credit search, to do everything, and you get the approval. The bank is disbursing the money immediately. It's within minutes, and that's it. Tamam. Yani bank has almost zero cost, right? No more branches, no more rent, no more capital investment in by making a branch, maintaining a branch, no more staff required at front end, no more staff required even at in the middle office as well, because you don't need any underwriters, you don't need any credit department. Of course, there will be some people required because they have to parameterize the product, the credit policy, etc. On the system, they have to monitor, but you only need 1 or 2 people, not 200 people, right? So all this, what are we doing now? The opening hours or the operating hours of the bank are technically 24/7 now, which is not the case before. Their cost has been shrunk, from here to really almost nothing, and they can acquire new customers, they can sell to existing customer, and they, as Atem said, they are more competitive. So because they are making a lot of savings, they can pass on that saving to the customer. They can be more competitive. They offer a customer experience that is unprecedented. Even if you go to the best Paisley bank, you will not get this experience, right? So we are making the bank more profitable. We are making the bank more competitive. And these two things, they mean more sustainability, more growth for the bank, and also for the Kaplan finance sector. So it makes it easier for them because suddenly they have a huge budget released that they can use for the things that are preventing, their growth. For example, they can use this budget that will be freed up from here on education, customer education. They can start, doing exercises, different types of activities to build the trust that is there, to increase their outreach and so on and so on.
For a long time, banks have been grown on the job skills, opening branches and reaching the people all over the country in many cases.
Yeah.
But now it's not necessary, as you say.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite. Because most of the banks, they are closing down their branches, and this is what we are seeing. It's a very, very significant trend in the West, right? I'm referring to Europe, where hardly any branches left. Seriously, for like 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, you will not have a branch. So in a place like Istanbul, of course, there will be like maybe 20 branches left of a bank. The rest will be closed because it's too expensive for them and they don't need it. So everybody is now using technology, and this is where the Kaplan banks as well. So they, this economy of scale that you are talking about, that scale has now shifted. So that scale is now gone into the technology So the better equipped they are with the technology, you know, the better their performance will be. Yeah,
Of course, fully fledged digital lending banks are.
absolutely. They are on the horizon. There are 3 banks, you know, that are in formation right now in Turkey, and there might be more. Almost every, you know, country is focusing on, you know, digital banks, and many Muslim countries are, you know, even the countries like UK, for example, which is not a Muslim country, but it's one of the centers of Islamic finance in the world. You know, there are projects, I think at least 2 or 3 projects of, you know, Islamic digital banks. It's there. Okay, yeah. And actually, just I think in February this year, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we have actually completed. We means IFAS, you know, IFIN's mother company. We have completed, you know, the Fintech framework for the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, right? And this is again another example where market penetration of Islamic capital markets in a country of 230 million was very, very hard. It was a very big challenge. There is only 1% of the population that is actually engaging in capital market at, you know, altogether, forget Islamic. Only, you know, even Faisli, not much people, you know, and simply because of these reasons, there is lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, and there is lack of, you know, outrage. So that's why this, you know, the regulator is very keen to implement a national, you know, strategy and this framework that we have prepared for them in order to use technology to overcome this issue, to increase the market penetration of, you know, capital market products and, you know, to help, you know, Islamic finance basically in that sense. So this is the way forward. And similarly, you know, Indonesia has adopted it. So you were asking how, so because of different policies that we implemented for them, but also using technology. Okay, yeah.
So, any questions from the audience?
Good question. I saw a report recently, and Fintech score of Bangladesh, for example, or Hong Kong was positive. I was really shocked when I saw that. Why is that?
Sorry, what?
Give global Islamic Fintech score.
Okay.
The report was about that, and score of, for example, Hong Kong and Bangladesh was higher than, and Iran higher than Turkey. What is the reason? So,
Easy to explain. Let me wait for you, inshallah. Bangladesh is, I think, the 3rd largest Muslim country by population after Indonesia and Pakistan. And Islamic banking has existed for more than 3 decades now, right? And it has actually a much higher, Bangladesh has a much higher market share. I think they're currently around 25-30% of their banking sector is actually Islamic, right? And the way things are heading there, the likelihood is that at least the retail sector will become almost 100% Islamic, maybe in 10-20 years, right? Which is very good. So of course, they are bringing technology also. So I would not be surprised at all if, you know, their score is higher than Turkey, right? Now, what is the other country that you mentioned? No, that is a surprise for you because I don't know Iran. Hong Kong is a surprise. I don't know really how, you know, the people were working on the report.
even higher than Pakistan.
Hong Kong,
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Pakistan has a very low penetration pattern.
Because of that still.
I don't know, but I'm not aware of you know, much going on in Islamic finance in Hong Kong, but I don't know. Maybe there is something. Iran has a technical reason because Iran is actually the only country left in the world now, right now, that has 100% of its financial sector is Islamic. There is no Faisli activity at all. It's prohibited by constitution. So there used to be another country, Sudan, that was also in the same position, but unfortunately they changed their position, I think, a couple of years ago. So before, like 23 years before, they removed a, you know, Faisli banking, Faisli, you know, finance at all from the country. So everything was Islamic. But after like 3 decades, they decided to bring it back. So now they have reintroduced Faiz in Sudan. So no more, you know, the case now. But Iran has maintained its exclusivity in Islamic finance, and that's why you see the highest growth. So it's actually one of the largest Islamic finance markets in the world.
And everything that is here on is Islamic fintech space.
So there cannot be any non-Islamic fintech. So even if there are 5 fintechs in Iran and Turkey has 3, all 5 will be Islamic, whereas here 1 out of 3 will be Islamic.
We have really less knowledge about Islamic finance. For example, I'm an economist undergraduate student, and my knowledge is really less about that.
Well, there are a number of universities in Turkey, that I see are increasing their, offering courses, in the Islamic finance and Islamic economy. I'm also friends with, some very good Turkish, researchers and lecturers, who are very strong in Islamic economy. But there's a lot of work. So, this work unfortunately has to be conducted over a period of time and by multiple stakeholders. So we cannot say that this is only through the academic route or only through the capital banks or only through government support or whatever. There has to be, I think, a mix of different channels that need to be used in order to educate people and give them more knowledge about Islam. But Turkey has a lot of potential. In my view, it has a lot of potential.
May I ask a question about the first question?
Please.
Do you think political situation of Turkey is going to affect Islamic finance? What do you think about that?
I don't think that I'm qualified to answer this question. I'm still too new, for the country. I have lived only a year, and I don't think that I fully understand the political dynamics yet. So I will abstain from making any comments.
All I can answer this question.
If you wish.
But let me give you one example, and I always use this example that I believe is very important. In the real life examples, I already quoted UK, right, being one of the strongest Islamic finance markets. Many people, they ask me, how is it possible? It's not even Islam, it's a European country. What has it got to do with Islamic finance? Let me tell you what they are doing and how they are doing. So UK decided to embrace Islamic finance at least like 25, 30 years, right? And they allowed, the financial institutions and Al Barakah that here. It's actually, the mother company is in Bahrain. So Al Barakah was the first financial institution that back, I think, in the early 1990s. Most of you will not even be born by that time. They set up in London, right? And they started offering Murabha, house Murabha for home financing, right? So that was introduced. The government actually allowed it by exemption. There were a lot of challenges in the beginning, taxation, regulation, so on and so forth, and blah, blah, blah. A lot of things happened. What is really remarkable, right? That in these 3 decades, Orhan Bey, many governments in the UK have come and left. Okay, and we have 2 main parties. There's a Labour Party that is the left wing, and there is left wing, and there is a Tory party that's the right wing. Both of them have ruled the country in these 30 years, right? But the strategy that the government has had, the country has had about Islamic finance has not changed an inch in these 30 years, right? From the very beginning, they have made a vision that Islamic finance is a new, phenomenon. It has a future in the world. London is the world's center of finance. We must have this capability. We must lead the financial markets in Islamic finance. And what they are doing is actually that they have done a lot of work and they have a lot of resources behind this strategy by creating different task forces where different stakeholders have come together. The relevant authorities on taxation, the Bank of England, the central bank, the financial sector regulators, other authorities and so on and so forth. They work together. They have continued, following this line of action religiously, and whatever has happened in the country politically has never affected anything. So whether we have a prime minister, from the Tory party or whether we have a prime minister from the Labour party, Islamic finance will be always there, right? And as a result, in 3 decades, they have managed to be the 3rd largest center of, of Islamic finance in the world. That's behind, Malaysia and behind the UAE, right? And let me tell you that the majority of the sukuk issued in the world, big sukuk, big ticket sukuk, they are actually listed in London Stock Exchange. They are not listed, in other places. They are actually listed and traded in London Stock Exchange. At one point, I don't know what's the most recent number, but at a couple of years ago, I read a report, and the amount of the sukuk that were listed was in excess of 20 billion, right? Only in London Stock Exchange. The English law firms are the most active, legal advisors for Islamic finance anywhere in the world. There are 6 fully fledged Islamic banks operating in the country, right? There are more than 15 Islamic windows, meaning, the Islamic, banking operations of conventional lenders, right? Operating in the country. And there is a lot more going on. There are now a lot of Islamic fintechs as well, right? We have Islamic pensions in the country, right? And how much is the Muslim population, by the way, in the UK? 4%. Our population is 4%. So of course, you can imagine that all this is not done for 4% of the population, right? There is much more. And this is what, really makes the difference for a country to have Islamic finance as a really value-added, component of their economy. And they are earning a lot of money. And, a lot of these big projects in the UK, they are funded by Islamic finance. For example, the tallest building in the UK, in London, the Shard, right? The famous Shard. This is like this big tower that is funded by Islamic finance. Who has seen a James Bond movie? I'm sure someone has. You have seen some. He always drives his Aston Martin car. Yeah. Aston Martin company was actually financed by Islamic finance, right? And many more things, right? So there's a lot of foreign direct investments that the country is attracting, through Islamic finance. There is a lot of export of services, and they're earning fees from there, from listings, from tradings, from this, from that. And of course, when it comes to the 4% population, again, the government is very clear that this population is ours. They are British citizens. They have every right to have access to finance. So there is a video clip that you can Google. The former Prime Minister of the UK, David Cameron, he made this statement officially. We will provide Islamic finance solutions for student finance, for student loan, for universities. We will provide financing, Sharia compliant financing for SMEs, for the startups, because we don't want our population to be deprived. We want our population to have equal opportunity. So if there are people who make their decision on the basis of their faith, we will make sure that there is options for them. So this is how you create a value from something. Now, it's not a Muslim country, but it's a different mentality. It's a different mindset.
So, any questions from the audience, from Zoom?
Yeah. Actually, space to come back in many other contexts, but like you said in the beginning, we are living in a very fast paced world, especially the technology is changing very fast. So I think, especially as Muslims, that we have this mindset to, like being left behind, especially after the power change, the Western powers, powerful than us. Like, I think there is an urge to catch up with all the changes, but at the same time, there is, this maintaining our principles, our deen, and like you said, like the Islamic scholars, like behind, but we can really understand what's going on in the country, for example, blockchain. Like, how do you maintain that balance? that need to do something, but at the same time, that maintaining what we have. For example, the example you shared, it sounds good on paper, but at the same time, it feels like it empowers the consumerism of capitalism, for example, to spend more, enables people to spend more actually, for example. I mean, it bothered me to an extent when I heard that. Like I said, it sounds good, it's easy, it's convenient, but at the same time, like, very easy to spend money by using that. So how do you maintain that? How do you maintain that balance?
What is the competition you see? What is where they are competing? What is the competition between where? Right, the competition we see is, currently in a conventional bank, through your mobile application, you're already, I'm sure you're already getting multiple SMCs or MMCs or notification related to your consumer finance, right? And they are easy to use. And when it comes to using consumer finance within a halal way, why it should be hard? If I make it easier to, I just contribute to making people more vulnerable to spend their money or more vulnerable to not able to manage their finances, or enabling them to find an halal option of the same product or the same service that is available to them. And I think the competition in between, the value we are generating here is to bring in the same experience or the better experience for the consumer finance, for car finance, for the Muslims, or the Islamic banks, to conventional banks. So this is the value I think you need to look for. Otherwise, buy now, pay later models are everywhere. I already told that we are sixth when it comes to, in the world, we are sixth when it comes to the number of credit cards holders. Maybe when it comes to transactions, we might be 7%. So we are already in that level, but not in a good manner, not in a good way. Now, what we're trying to bring is, or with Islamic fintechs, what will be done is to make it in a halal way or to make it in proper way. Okay.
I would like to add a few words. I really like the question that this young gentleman asked. I think there is a risk actually of unknowingly sliding into this capitalist type of mindset where you promote consumerism and you encourage people to spend money that they don't have on the things that they don't need to impress people that they don't like, right? Who don't like that. This is the definition of consumerism. For me, I read it somewhere and I really amused and fitting. So I repeat once again for everybody's benefit. So I need to borrow money that I don't have to buy things that I don't need to impress people that I don't like. Right? I think it cannot be better than this, right? This is not good from an Islamic perspective, right? So we need to live a simple life and we have to live within our means. However, there are certain realities of life that come as a package of the time that we are living in, right? Now, because people have access to, haram money, right? And, the encouragement or the urge to consume more than your needs is there. So now there is a choice. Either you leave them on their own and, unless this mind change, this mindset doesn't change with the general public, then the danger, the risk is that they will go and they will borrow money on files and they will, engage themselves into something that is not, that will have, an adverse impact on their life this world and also in the hereafter. So what we are trying to do is to make it easier for them, at least, if nothing else, live their life in accordance with our faith, right? So ideally, they should consume within their means, but if they want to do something, at least it's not haram, right? The other thing is that, when we are using this technology, the algorithms to calculate the credit score, the credibility, the solvency of, an individual person or even for a business, these algorithms can be, made in a way that actually act more responsibly, right? So there is some control possible, which of course remains in the bank's hands, right? So it's not in our hands. We just provide technology, we provide the infrastructure, but the banks who are using, the financial institutions that are using, they have this control. And if they want, they can actually, fine tune and, parameterize these, algorithms in a way that becomes more responsible financing, if you will. So it gives more responsible financing decisions rather than just throwing money at anyone and everyone and leading the market to the issues of like subprime price. So there is some positive aspect of that as well. But overall, I believe that this risk that you are mentioning will always remain there, and unfortunately, there is no real remedy to that except that people understand and they decide to live accordingly.
Okay, so we are almost out of time. Last question from Zoom audience also. You can.
I wanted something also.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not directly related to our topic, but I wonder something. Is there any possibility for Islamic countries to use common currency, and what the consequences of this?
Okay, well, this is a very painful topic.
I think
Okay, so Islamic countries and unity, I think, are two, poles, two ends of a magnet. So, if you put magnets together, they will always repel each other. So, for me, this is off record, but this is how I view, the Islamic world. But when it comes to unity, we are, at different poles, so just keep repelling each other. So, it's very difficult. Realistically speaking, I don't see this happening. I'm just going to be very frank with you. I don't see this happening. There have been some attempts, to create, a single currency in certain regions of Muslim world, but never came to fruition just because of the issue that I told you. This is very unfortunate, but this is a fact. I hope that things change for better in future, and our generations to come, they will be able to see and benefit from any such improvement. But so far, it's not really. I don't see it.
Okay. So last question.
Some rules are not so definite in Islam. And when it comes to these controversial products, how do you decide whether to invest in?
Sorry, what is the controversy?
Like, for example, cigarettes are not haram, but also it's not legal.
Okay, with the due respect to the smokers in the room, there is a scholarly opinion that consumption of tobacco or cigarette is not halal. That's the mildest term that I can use. The reason, and you have to understand where it comes from. Sharia is actually not set in stone. It's very dynamic because it responds naturally to the needs of time, right? So there are certain parts of Sharia that are very static. We cannot move. For example, we need to pray, we need to, pay 2.5% zakat, we have to, fast during Ramadan, we have to go for Hajj, etc., etc. So these are the static parts of Sharia. But there is a dynamic part as well, and that dynamic part changes during the time with the facts of, and the context, which may be local, which may be in a certain time period, or due to certain circumstances. So what happened with tobacco or cigarettes is that initially the scholars were of the opinion that it's not something haram, right? It's not good, it gives you bad smell, but it's not haram. But later, when the research progressed and it came to light through empirical evidence, scientific evidence, that consumption of tobacco is something that can lead eventually to serious injury to health or eventually even to loss of life. So at that point, the scholarly opinion changed. And now that I wouldn't call it a consensus yet, but the majority of scholars are of the view that tobacco should not be consumed, right? And as a result, the majority of the capital banks in the world, they abstain from investing in any business that is related to tobacco, like other prohibited businesses as well. For example, alcohol, sharab, no, or other things that can be detrimental to human health, that can be detrimental to the environment, or that are clearly prohibited in Islam. So when you invest in Qatlum Bank, if it's a truly Qatlum Bank, then I don't see any risk of your money being invested in activities like tobacco or something else. But it will very much depend on how good is the bank and how they are operating.
And this one, shooting your bank, you may just search for their boards area. Because they are already announced their webpage, the bank's webpage, and you will know who is providing required audits or who is allowing some products to be executed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any questions online?
I didn't see any question. I'm checking the chats. That is nothing, I guess.
And what about it?
Okay.
Yourself? It seems you still have hundreds of questions.
Yeah, of course. We thank you for the attending. Keep our work. And it's a really pleasure for us. And we have to appreciate him for contribution of the Islamic finance for his experience. It's really a lot for every country, including Turkey, that's deeply been here. And I am sure they contribute a lot in terms of Islamic Fintech. And we will benefit from it in the future, in the near future, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Orhan, and thank you for the audience, including online. Wish you all the best, inshallah.
Can we take the photo together?